Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this important announcement, and thank you to Margie Prop for always being here for us to provide interpretation. Back at the beginning of the pandemic, as many of us physically distanced to keep ourselves and our loved ones and most vulnerable members of our community safe, having a safe and healthy home became more important than ever before. But for many in our community whose hours were cut or who lost their jobs, their ability to ensure they had that stable housing, to pay their rent, to stay housed, that ability was threatened. And in response, our dedicated city staff at the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights quickly launched an innovative new program called the Tenant Assistance Project, or TAP, in collaboration with University of Nebraska-Lincoln's College of Law's Civil Clinic, the Nebraska State Bar Association's Volunteer Lawyers Project, and Legal Aid of Nebraska. Together, these organizations have worked tirelessly to keep people safe, healthy, and housed by providing free legal advice and representation to those in our community who are facing eviction. And over the past year, the program has seen great success. Volunteer attorneys for TAP have provided legal assistance to about 560 households with a 98% success rate at preventing immediate eviction. And in addition to legal representation, the city has utilized federal funds to hire a housing rights coordinator. And this coordinator is also present at every eviction hearing to connect landlords with the rental assistance funds that we have available to help keep residents housed and ensure that rental property owners maintain their income and can pay their mortgages too. Now, because of TAP's success, the program has received recognition throughout our community and throughout the state. TAP was awarded the 2020 Equal Justice Award from Legal Aid of Nebraska, the 2020 Good Apple Award from Nebraska Appleseed, and the Outstanding Pandemic Response Award from the Lincoln Homeless Coalition. We are so proud of the leadership shown by Mindy Rush Chipman, the director of the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights, in getting this program off the ground. And she recently received the Nebraska Bar Association and Nebraska Lawyers Foundation Visionary Award, in part due to her work and her leadership developing TAP. Now, as we celebrate these successes, we also must acknowledge that many of our residents still face a difficult road ahead. For nearly a year, an eviction moratorium has been in effect at the national level to help ensure that our residents experiencing the economic impacts of the pandemic stay housed. And last week, that moratorium was struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. So while many residents have secured rental assistance funds to stay housed, we do anticipate that there could be an increase in eviction filings in our community over the coming weeks. So to address this potential increase in evictions, we are looking for additional attorneys and community volunteers to lend a few hours of their time each week to help residents in need. If you're ready to help or would like to learn more about the difference you can make for some of our most vulnerable community members, please contact the Nebraska State Bar Association's Volunteer Lawyers Project via email at nevlp@nevlp.org or by calling 531-220-6773. As we work to keep people in stable housing, the city and county have continued to focus on efficiently and equitably distributing millions of dollars of federal rent and utilities assistance funds to do just that. And so far, our Rent and Utilities Assistance Program has provided $8.3 million to help over 1,700 families stay housed. 70% of those funds have gone to support families with the greatest need, those with incomes below 30% of area median income. And to put these numbers in perspective, this means that the vast majority of funds we've distributed have helped those whose income is $26,000 a year for a family of 4. We are very proud of the way our community has come together to get this rent and utilities support into the hands of landlords and tenants. While many communities across the country have yet to get their funds even out the door, the city of Lincoln has already distributed over 68% of the money we received last March from the first round of Treasury Department funding. And these numbers demonstrate a tremendous collaborative effort by our city team and our partners at UNL and numerous nonprofit agencies who've banded together to get this done. Knowing that many in our community are still struggling with housing costs, We want to make sure that everyone who is in need of assistance due to the pandemic is aware that funds are still available. With over $3.5 million left to distribute from our first round of federal funds, the city and county are here to help. Just visit the city's website at lincoln.ne.gov/rent to complete an online application. And if you need assistance, you can apply by telephone calling 402-413-2085. With that, I would be happy to take any questions from the media, and I also want to acknowledge that my city teammates are here. We have Nick Martinez, the city's rental assistance coordinator, who can answer any questions about rental assistance funds. Mindy Rush-Chipman from the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights is with us, and Ryan Sullivan from UNL's College of Law's Civil Clinic, a valued partner in this effort at the courts, is also here to answer questions about the tenant assistance project.
I have a question.
Yeah.
One thing that is inevitably going to be asked about this is, we want, in this, the landlords still need to, be able to pay their bills as well. Can you talk about how the funds are helping them and going to them directly, and just how they're not losing out in this situation?
Well, you bet. I mean, no one benefits from an eviction in the sense that this is costly and time-consuming for landlords and property managers. It's also devastating for tenants. So what we are trying to do with our emergency rental assistance funds is reach people in need prior to ever going to eviction court. And we're being successful in those early upstream interventions. But when we don't reach people, when people don't know about these funds for whatever reason, our last sort of stop is the courthouse. And so we want to be able to connect with people there too, through the free legal representation that is also coupled with information about how to access these dollars. And those dollars, those dollars are cut, those checks are cut, and in some cases they're directly made to landlords, in some cases to tenants. But the point is that we want to make sure that we are stopping the problem by filling the gap with the dollars that help people pay their rent, which help property managers and landlords continue to have their income steady, create stability, which we know is foundational to everyone's success. We don't want to have disruption in people's lives. We don't want to have disruption in people's financial security. This is a way of ensuring that our residents have stability, our landlords and property managers have stability, which we all need in these uncertain times.
Do you know how much money is left?
We have at least $3.5 million left from that first round of funding. We are, of course, discussing and looking at whatever opportunities there may be to access additional federal funds as they become available.
Do you have funds to support people who want to volunteer? Or will there be like an extra building for them to come to and help out others? Or this is just, their volunteer time and they're helping through Zoom, help people, people you said that you needed more lawyers or people to come help you. How will that, be possible?
Yeah. I would love to invite Mindy Rush-Chipman and Ryan Sullivan up to discuss more about the details of the Tenant Assistance Project. It is a volunteer effort. It is a pro bono service that we are looking towards the generosity of talented individuals in our community to help provide that support. And we do offer some supports and training to them as well. But Ryan and Mindy can tell you more about those details.
Thanks, man. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I was just asking, are there funds to support, people that come to help, like you're asking for lawyers to help pro bono, so will they meet with people who need help in, a certain place, or will they help through Zoom? How will that just go about, I guess I'm asking.
Sure.
How will they be supported?
Yeah, the way the courtroom aspect of it, the courthouse aspect of it works is a volunteer would register as a volunteer. They'd be provided materials on how to represent, the lawyer would be provided some materials and training on how to represent a tenant in eviction court. And then they're provided an opportunity to mentor a seasoned volunteer who's been volunteering like Mindy and I have for the last 18 months. And so they can sign up online, and they can sign up in advance, and it works out really well.
And so the focus, will it be like, you guys are asking for more help, so how many people do you expect to get from this? Are you guys starting to get overwhelmed as of right now?
We anticipate with the CDC eviction protections having been lifted to see a spike in eviction filings. Right now, we are maintaining. I was just over there and volunteered this morning, and we were scrambling. We could have used an extra attorney or two. Sometimes there are 20 cases in a day, and 3 or 4 attorneys to represent them all. And if even half of those tenants are notified of their hearing and appear, we're at a 2-to-1 ratio, and those hearings go very fast. They're all scheduled for the same time in a catacall format. So the more attorneys, the better.
So do attorneys just go to the hearings and talk to people? I mean, you don't connect with them before the hearings, you're just catching them as they go in, is that what's happening?
Correct. So through our outreach efforts, we encourage, we have community and law student volunteers who go to each home and provide them a packet of materials that says, first thing, if you're, at this point, they've already been sued for eviction, so get legal representation, call legal aid.
So you know who they are, because you see the filings?
Yep, we see the filing, and it says, call legal aid, get rental assistance, show up for your hearing no matter what, because if you do not show up for your hearing, you 100% will be evicted. That's how the process works. So our volunteers at the courthouse then, as soon as the tenants come off the elevator, they're asked if they would like free legal assistance, and then they're paired with typically a law student and a volunteer attorney who work together.
And Ryan is also being somewhat modest. This volunteer opportunity for lawyers is really facilitated by the law students at the civil clinic who do preparation for each eviction case. So as a volunteer attorney, we all have a lot on our plates. We can literally go to the courthouse the day of the eviction hearing and be presented with all of the research and the possible defenses for that eviction case. So not only will you have a more experienced volunteer to mentor and a law student to help you, you're also going to have the research that was done in advance. So it's a really great way for attorneys to use their law license in this special way to keep people housed, particularly during the pandemic.
So how does that typically work, and how is the moratorium being lifted going to affect the people you've already helped? In fact, like what is the legal, how are you keeping people in homes, and what's in it, and did it rely on the moratorium, and what's going to happen, what's going to happen now?
That's a great question. The moratorium was one of the tools that we had in our tool belts to keep people housed. Now that tool's been taken away. So we have to rely on our other tools. So that research that the law students do in advance, we need to make sure that tenants were notified in the proper way and that there's not any other defenses that are available to them. I think our most powerful tool, though, is the fact that we have team members from the city at eviction court every single hearing to do a emergency rental assistance application right there on the spot. And we've also been given some tools to expedite that process for the folks that are literally at eviction court facing eviction that day. So that's a really great tool that our volunteer attorneys can use to try to negotiate a mutually beneficial resolution for both the tenant and the landlord.
With the pandemic also, kind of at a point that's pretty bad right now, getting worse, is there concerns that will contribute to more people facing eviction or financial hardships, and are there ways to combat that?
I'd say we anticipate what to play out is what played out a year and a half ago, is if the pandemic worsens and the restrictions are put in place again, that is going to impact lowering the employment opportunities, the employment and the hours of our most vulnerable populations. And the ones that have gotten back on their feet, have gotten caught up on the rent, either on their own or through rental assistance, are now going to be made vulnerable again to eviction. And in Nebraska, it takes just 7 days. You get 7 days cushion, and your lease is immediately, irrevocably terminated.
Do you know how many evictions there have been in the city? Like, you have numbers on how many you've helped. Do you know how many people have lost their homes? Is there any, I don't know if there's a way to.
We have that information. It hasn't. I don't think it's been aggregated yet. I can tell you that if we have as Mayor said, we have a 98% success rate for those that appear, And we find that 30 to 50% of the tenants appear. The ones that don't appear, we don't have a solid grasp on why. There's some service issues with Nebraska's laws. Sometimes they've already vacated the premises because the notice they received says pay or vacate. And so some of them have vacated. But the ones that don't appear, in 90+% of the cases do get evicted. And so if someone emailed me, I could probably get those numbers relatively quickly.
Have you seen the filings increase already?
Yes, not the first week of August, but the second week of August, because of, there was a little bit of delay, as it was kind of a surprise on the extension. We saw that jump because the landlords anticipated it was going to expire, and then it didn't. And then it hasn't been quite enough time yet since the Supreme Court's ruling to really see anything, have a sample size to really see anything significant. But we're sitting at 30 to 40 evictions a week in August from memory.
And I also wanted to ask about federal funds. Are there more available now? Or did the American Rescue Plan include that, or?
We have had several rounds of funds to help keep people housed. And what I can tell you right now is that we're getting about, last time I checked, about 150 applications for assistance per week and cutting about 150 checks per week. I can double check and make sure that's still an accurate number for you, but the last time I met with Urban Development, that's who is coordinating on behalf of the city, along with, I don't know if Nick Martinez would like to come up and explain a little more about how that funding is being deployed on the ground, but he can provide more details about that too. Nick, do you want to come up and share a little bit about what you do at the courtroom to help make sure people can, and outside of the courtroom, to make sure people get the funds?
Yes, I'm Nick Martinez, the rental assistance coordinator here at the city. My role is primarily kind of managing the disbursement of funds and the processing of applications for rental assistance.
So with $3.1 million left, is that enough, you think, to get us through the initial part of this adjustment back to being able to file evictions?
Yes, so with the ERA 1 funds, we're anticipating that that's going to run through the end of October. And like Mayor was saying, we have some additional pots of funding that we're going to be able to access after that.
Do you know how many people you've been able to assist with the money that's been paid out so far?
I do actually have an exact number.
Perfect.
So with all of our rental assistance funds, we've assisted a total of 2,728 individual households. And so we've also kind of done subsequent assistance to some households, but it's 2,728 individual households.
Why would you encourage people to fill out that application and see if that's something that could help them?
Yeah, I think it's a purposefully flexible pot of funding. Most people have kind of the main qualification is you have to have been economically impacted by the pandemic, and I think it's safe to say that that applies to pretty much everyone. Because of that, it's more than likely that you're eligible for this assistance. This money is here in our community, and it's the earlier you can apply, the better, because it does take a couple of weeks to process these applications, but it can really go a long way and kind of prevent you from ending up at eviction court in the first place and keep you housed.
So these checks, do they only cover back rent, or do they help them with future payments as up to a year or so? How does it help exactly?
Yes, so typically we're able to cover 12 months total, and so we can cover typically any owed arrears, so back rent, and in most cases we're paying out 3 months into the future of rent, which is really excellent that we're able to do that because it provides some stability and allows folks to get back on their feet and stable.
Are there any more questions?
I just have one more.
You bet.
And that is, do you worry, is there a cliff here? Is there a cliff you're able to maintain this and it looks like you're helping a lot of people? Is there gonna be a point where the money runs out? And are you worried about that? Or are you hoping that the assistance you provide, you know, allows that people to find employment or,
Yeah, well, absolutely, we're very concerned, and what we are doing alongside all of this, some of the other announcements we've made this week, is we are looking to help some of our most vulnerable workers have opportunities to reskill if they need to pivot and gain new skills to find a different kind of employment. We recognize that may be the case for some of our residents. And we also think that as we continue to promote public health practices that protect our residents and businesses, that we will see a rebound in consumer confidence, and more likely, you know, more and more people will have their hours restored. So, you know, we have a lot of different things that we're working on to try to make things better for our community. But yes, there's a finite amount of money. We hope that this helps bridge the gap until people can get back on their feet. And we are also working to, you know, make sure that any individual we come into contact with is aware of other supportive wraparound services that city and county provide, so that if there are other obstacles or barriers to their employment, that they can get help through other channels as well. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for being here to cover this. And we really want this news to get spread far and wide in Lincoln so we can help more people who are in need. And I'm really grateful to our team and to the College of Law's Civil Clinic, to the Volunteers Lawyers Project, to Legal Aid, and all who have really come together to make this work for our community. Thank you.